Am I taking a seat that somebody else? No, of course not. I'm going to take my stuff off the seat. Go sit back there. No, I'll take the rest of the stuff. Oh, okay. And then I'll let you. Can I help you? Yeah, I'll take my computer. They're a little slippery. You want me to sit Is your shirt old or new? It's old. But it's my favorite one. She was wearing it yesterday. I said, oh, I like too. I'm going to wear mine tomorrow. And I understand the things in hallway or call or oh, no. Yeah. He supplied most of those shirts.
Didn't it come out, darling? That's one cake you did. I brought some.
Yes.
Well,
they go to friends.
It's
about 20 minutes. It's not far at all. I haven't ever gotten to live this close to them, so it's really great. The kids are our godchildren. Of course, they're all grown up now.
I know.
It's like 20 minutes away, so it's always an hour and a half or something. Yeah, we were at the university basis. Some teachers on the basis. Oh, yeah. So I think you know. So they've adopted her. Yeah. Let's take it well. Sicilian, Indian, or Irish? Sicilian, so Italian. She could walk around anywhere in the city and South America. Yeah. One of those places.
Before I saw Harry and Brick as I was walking down you all became
Hello, friends. Good evening. Welcome to our evening worship. I'm Tom Rockwell, your convener. Quick announcement that our ice cream social will be at 8:30 right after this, and it will be in the dining hall. So, ice cream 8:30 in the dining hall. We're happy to have Evan Welkin from FWCC back again as our speakers. We've got Bob and Hope Carter and Christy Utz and Katrina McConaughey all helping out with music tonight. And we're going to start off here with Mr. Mark Tope, who apparently was his 70th birthday, which he left largely unmentioned until dinner. He's going to give us some Quaker Haven facts and stories here.
Horace Greeley said, "When fact becomes legend, print the legend." And there is a legend of a very infamous Quaker who was on the grounds. Does anyone know who that is? Does anyone know who that is?
Richard Nixon.
No, not Richard. Oh, Richard Nixon's not. Richard Nixon was a treasure Quaker.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. And so, well, he's not Quaker, but he's treasured by some of us mega people. But anyway, that's beside the point. Okay. Mega. But anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk about. Anyway, can anyone guess who it is? Della knows. Who was it, Della?
John Dillinger.
Don Dillinger. How many of you knew that Don Dillinger's parents were Quakers? Right. Belonged to the Mooresville meeting. Right. So he had been shot, and the legend says that while he was shot, he was cared for in the Johnson cabin. Thinking that they would not think to look for him in a Quaker camp. So anyway, the other story, real quick, is while he was on the run in 1933, they were watching his farmhouse in Mooresville, and the FBI were in Betty Hesselman's grandparents' silo looking for him. He, on Father's Day in 1933, he went to Mooresville Friends meeting. The pastor was Gertrude
Rainier. R-I-N-A-R-D.
And she gave a wonderful sermon. And afterwards, he came up and he said, "You'll never know how much good that sermon did me." Then 5 days later, knocked over a bank. The PS to that story is the FBI were on the verge of arresting Gertrude for harboring a fugitive. And she said, "I did not harbor a fugitive. I preached in a church." So that's the story. And whether it's true or not, you threw Thank you, Art. Okay, we're going to turn it over to Bob and Hope Carter here to lead our music for the night.
Okay, tonight we're going to introduce you to some songs that I think introduce you, but some may know them. The first one is called The Servant Song, and it's an old hymn written back in the 1800s, so it's not something new for those of you who want hymns. And I think you'll like the words. So you'll catch on, and we will sing it. We have a team here. I don't even know if it's on. Can you hear?
No, I can't. It was not.
Oh, it wasn't on. You have to turn the little button on the side. Okay.
Am I in the way of anybody seeing the world?
You was over there.
Yeah, so we will do this one, and then we have a couple other songs that you'll say, oh, I don't know those, but if you listen, I think you'll find you do know those. Okay. You can follow up here. You don't have to have a hymn book. It's all printed. And we wanted the sunset over the lake for you.
Oh. Wow.
We're doing 1, 2, 3, 4. The next one, though I may speak with bravest fire. Ooh, we're going to talk about fire, but we're not arsons. And if you want to know where the words come from, look them up in your scripture. It's in 1 Corinthians 13. So we're talking about how to live this out corporately. So this is what we're singing about today.
Spirit come, our hearts control, our spirits long to be made whole. Let your love dry every plea. By this we worship and are free.
Thank you. So you've learned a new song. I hope you enjoyed that. But don't go away. We're not done. We're about to have another very special musical treat from Christy, who's going to play a song. Do you want to introduce it? Sure.
Have you ever had someone say your name in a loving way, and you knew they loved you? Saying your name, I'm Christy, but I'm also Mima.
No.
Mima. I remember like 8 years ago, I was at my rock bottom, but I came up standing on the rock. But I remember my first 24 hours in recovery, the nurse came in and she said, Christy, Christy. And I just felt really loved, like someone cared.
Oh.
And she had said to me, I've been through what you are going through, and you're going to be all right. And she called me by name. Give me Jesus. Jesus in Hebrew is Yeshua. My beloved is the most beautiful among thousands and thousands. My beloved is the most beautiful among thousands and thousands. You are the great high priest. You know my every need. You understand my weaknesses. Your gentle, humble heart sets me truly free. All I want to do is sing Yeshua. Those who look to you will never be ashamed. Their faces will be radiant. Who can comprehend No eye has seen, no ear has heard what you have prepared. Exceedingly, abundantly, above what we ask. You are so high above, yet you dwell with us. Oh, what sweet communion! He who the sun sets free is truly free indeed. You break the chains that no one sees. Yeshua, ooh, Yeshua, Jesus, Messiah. Even the raging sea must obey your name. All earth belongs to you. Among the mighty ones, there is none like you. All the heavens bow to you. My beloved is the most beautiful among thousands and thousands. Give me Jesus. Praise God for his son. Praise God.
Wow, thank you, Kristen, for that beautiful prayer. Hope we could all feel that. And your testimony that we heard that. That's pleasing in the sight of God, and it brings us further. So we're going to have a little bit of a change here in the middle of it. We're going to follow that up. How do we follow that up? We'll have a song that we will play, but before that, or as we play that song, we are going to have...
We're going to have our offering for the FUM General Fund during the music here.
So we'll play through as the offering starts to be taken, and then after one time through, everyone is invited to join in and sing.
You'll sing the words at first.
Oh, the deep, deep love of Jesus.
And as you listen, just hear those waves rolling. We're going to keep in tune with what we've just been hearing with beautiful saxophone. But just imagine yourself on an ocean and feeling that.
stand up if you want to.
Boundless free, flowing in the eyes of mighty ocean, in its fullness over me. Underneath me, all around me, is
We're going to do one last song at the request of our speaker, Sia Hamba. Would you like to?
Yeah, I was going to say more about it afterwards, but I can say it before. Fair.
I'll do this.
Okay. So I'm offering this song, which is from in our World Quaker Songbook, in 3 languages. There's a few copies still left on the back table there if friends are interested. But this is a song we sang at the World Plenary Meeting last August in South Africa. It's a song that was sung throughout the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa and has particular significance for friends there. And I think that's enough to say now. I'll say a little bit more afterwards.
Now, for words in either Zulu or Kosi, not sure which, are very difficult to fit in. So when you see it up on the screen, go ahead and show that. Wow. To fit that in is a little tricky. Are you really good at this?
I will do my best.
Okay, can you read that first line in how it's going to fit in the meter?
It goes
over and over. So
yes. If you don't get it the first time, it goes Siyahamba kuken yen kwen cause. Siyahamba kuken wen ken cause. Siyahamba kuken yen kwen cause. Siyahamba kuken wen ken cause. Can we try that? We'll sing it in English, and there's a Spanish version as well. So, this is a little outside of our comfort zone, so we're going to try it out.
And if anybody knows,
I do recommend standing for this one, friends.
the first part is just a step clap. Step
Oh, okay, so we're going to add a step clap if you wish.
Yeah.
Christy knows the step clap. I don't know the step clap.
If you wish. And if you want to know how to pronounce the Kiswahili, it's Twatembeya Kwenye Mwangaza. That'll come to the third verse.
If you didn't already do something new on your map, you're doing it right now.
Oh, we start that way.
Siyahamba kuken yen kwen cause. 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 Siyahamba, siyahamba ho. Siyahamba kuken yen kwen cause. Siyahamba, siyahamba ho. Siyahamba kuken yen kwen cause. Marching in the light of God. We are 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 marching, we are marching, oh, we are marching in the light of God. We are marching, we are marching, oh, we are marching in the light of God. There's a Spanish version too. Caminamos en la luz de Dios. 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 Caminamos, caminamos, caminamos en la luz de Dios. Caminamos, vamos caminando, caminamos en la luz de Dios. Excellent. Thank you, Brent. Thank you. I had not seen the Swahili version before. Four languages.
The Kenyans were getting
Sorry, apologies. So I wanted to share that as my first song to kick off this evening's talk because it relates to an important experience on my points of origin and transformation points that we talked about last night. So you'll notice, by popular demand, we were able to find a world map in the form of this globe. I did, in fact, hope to bring a world map to here, but Caleb of the camp staff was very gracious and brought us his globe. And so, the point of origin for this song for me actually begins right where I was born in the state of Oregon. But when I learned that I was going to be going to South Africa this last summer, I was actually in Italy, and then in Philadelphia, and then in South Africa, all in the space of less than a month. And so I just wanted to start us off this evening by showing, number one, that I would do my own homework, that I wouldn't ask you to do something that I myself didn't wish to do. But also to say that it's been a long and somewhat globe-trotting path to get to this point. And I'd like us to start actually this evening by, I'd like to ask if anybody would like to share about some of the points that they put on either of these maps, or if you wish, your own point on the globe. No obligation, but if you're willing to share a short story about what you put a tag on either the map of Indiana or the US map, or where you would put one on this globe, I'd love to invite you up. Is anybody willing? Yes, Norma. I promise that I didn't plant former members of my executive committee into the audience.
Since I was part of the request for a world map, I would go to London and to Switzerland. And the transformative experience, sorry Dan's not here tonight, but was being on the Quaker Youth Pilgrimage. It was being on the Quaker Youth Pilgrimage in 1969. And after a long flight over and no sleep, you get there and all you want to do is just like crash. And no, it's time for unprogrammed worship, or yes, for an hour. It took me a long. We had that every day for an hour. And particularly when we got to Switzerland, we were in a little house and we still had by candlelight worship every night. And it was walking forever.
Beautiful, beautiful, thank you. Anyone else willing to brave? Yeah, come on up, Dan. Yes.
So in 1962, I was on an AFSC work camp. And first we went to Germany and built some houses. And then we went to Turkey, which is, let's see, right there it is. And on the way back from Turkey, I stopped in Philadelphia to see a friend who had been on the work camp. And he took me to see Douglas Steer, a young man who was in Haverford College. And Douglas Steer was in bed with a bad leg or something. But he said to me, "What do you want to do?" And in my experiences in Turkey, I said, "I would like to do agricultural development overseas." And he said to me, "You go out to Urban College and see Lou Hoskins." And Lou Hoskins lined me up with Charter College School, where I spent 3 years. That visit to Douglas Steer was transformative in my life.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah. Wow. How about one more? Better not shift too much in your chair. I might think they're moving up. Okay, Luann.
Okay, well, started in Indiana, of course, but in 2013, I went on pilgrimage to Ireland, in Northern Ireland, with Margaret Fraser and other friends. That was interesting. To prepare for that, Margaret had me go to Brent Bill's house with him and Nancy on Sunday afternoons or evenings for their unprogrammed worship. I said I was okay with that because I got involved with Friends Committee on Scouting in 2007, and most of them were unprogrammed friends. Lesson learned, never ask an unprogrammed friend or an unknown friend to lead in prayer or closing a meeting, because they will sit there in silence for an hour and a half. Sometimes they fall asleep. From there, I became an FWCC representative from Western Yearly Meeting and went to PSAC Peru a few months later. And we talked about transformation in PSAC. And had a friend from England that I met there, Beth. Her husband worked for the World Office in London. And she sent me a message the week after we got home after a couple days, thanking me for helping her with her transformation while we were in PSAC. And I said, Beth, I didn't do anything. I said, yes, you did. I said, no, I didn't. I think I told that story last night, so I won't go any further on that. That was probably the biggest start to my transformation. 2017, I went to England for their yearly meeting gathering. I was blessed to be able to spend a couple days at Woodbrook Quaker Study Center and take some courses from some of the tutors there. I had a lot of friendships with the tutors at Woodbrook, and that hurt really bad that they had to close, but they're still doing tutoring and the programming under the name of Woodbrook. I went to South Africa last year. So I've been to South America and South Africa, and I swear I would never have gone to either one of those countries. I went to both of those countries, and it's the amazing friendships that I have met and have been nurtured through FWCC that I have done all that, because Friends Committee on Scouting is an affiliate of FWCC. So that all started for me in 2007.
Thank you. Thank you, Blaine. Well, thank you all, friends. These are these individual experiences, and I don't want to call anybody further up to the stage. But I'd now like us to break again into smaller groups. So same 4 to 5 people as last night, if you don't mind. We can pull up the connections between the chairs. And did friends bring their map with them? Okay, all right. We're going to get into the map now. If you didn't do your map, just play along. You can talk about an experience you might have had over here. But let's get into our groups of 4 to 5. No, just around you. Yeah, groups of 4 to 5 around you. Doesn't have to be the same people as last night. And so as you're doing that, introduce yourselves perhaps briefly if you haven't already. And I will start by sharing my map, because again, I'm not asking you to do anything that I don't do myself. So this is my map. This is my map of the lower part of Quaker Haven. So we've got the lake over here, the dock, the dining hall, the chapel. I'm staying over here in the red house, and my map is fairly concentrated. But my transformational experience happened right here on the playground earlier today. I think you heard me reference last night that you could choose any sort of transformational point along your map here. You could just take a different route. You could sit in a special spot. But I referenced last night that maybe when I first came here, I was a little nervous about talking to the Amish folks who were here. But I went up and actually introduced myself to a fellow who was playing with his kids on the playground. And I asked him if he might be willing to offer the opening prayer for this session tonight. Because in the spirit of FWCC, we do reach out to friends of all kinds and even other religious bodies seeking to build bridges. And I learned something. He said, and I guess I wasn't surprised to hear it, but he said, in the Amish world, we don't really do prayer outside of our own community with others. But we had a really interesting conversation. He spoke a little bit about his community, and in fact, he is a minister in this group that is here with us. And they come from just right down the road. But it was interesting. He said something like, you're seeing us here in a not a very Christian way. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, here we are, not really working, just hanging out by by the lake, and I said, well, what's not Christian about that? And he said, well, for us, it's about really the hard work and the time we spend together, in our farms. And really, when we're here, we're kind of out of that mode. And so I really enjoyed having that moment of fellowship with him. And I acknowledge that he did not wish to come say a prayer, but I offered him one of the cookbooks. So I know the Amish, somebody made a comment that the Amish don't need cooking advice from Quakers, but he seemed appreciative, and it was a really pleasant conversation. So for me, I overcame a little bit of hesitation and nervousness to reach out to him. And I'm going to invite you now in your small groups to share with others, even if you don't have your map with you. Maybe you could share one little thing you might have tried, and I'll give you about 5 minutes to do that with the other members of the group.
And she started talking about the gift of I never had a conversation.
Mine was
a little different.
My map was in here, trying to get the equipment to work right. I never did, and we got to the point where I realized it doesn't have to be perfect. People will be able to hear what's going on and see what's going on, even though it doesn't meet my standards of production value.
Somebody said every once in a while,
another 2 minutes.
We started as friends before. We did. The three of us did it for 2 years and then 30 years. So, like overlap. Although she did, things with us by Zoom, we'd already been doing things that way. For a year.
All right, friends, let's slowly wrap up our talk.
It all seems crazy now. Good thing we didn't know everything we were getting into what we did.
Yeah. So you were already tired of the past when they
Oh, I know everything.
were Sean, then you're 4 years. It's like 20 years.
No, it's just 4 years. All my years. All for someone and those years that Kathy Harris got sick, Christmas, Ronnie got sick, Welkin and I were just recovered from COVID, so they were there first. And soon they had heart issues, so literally it kept Sean the Della shot. He'd already gotten it seemed to work well together. So it was a very wild experience. And one of us went out to lunch after the other, and then we all came down with COVID.
It looks like everybody's still sharing many. I don't want to cut this off. People have still more to share.
That's the time I ever heard. But I didn't get covered.
Yeah, it was a crazy time.
They still in Japan.
Right now, I think they're hoping to come back. I don't know if it's long term or short term. It's a pretty big deal to get 4 people back and forth to Japan.
All right.
Yeah.
But I forgot.
Well, would somebody be willing to share? Yes. Come on up. Or you,
I got a loud voice.
Okay.
What we have here is the four of us, three of us are centered around the lake. One under the sycamore tree, right outside the swimming area. One on Vespers Point, which is the deck. And one of us sitting on the bench right outside the dining hall. Then a fourth person on benches right off the Band-Aid bungalow where the nurse is. So 3 of the 4 of us are right on the lake.
And when you say us, who do you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. You mapped each of those of you in the group.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, all 4 of us.
Beautiful, beautiful. And was there a particular experience you had at each of those places? Just so I'm clear.
Well, for me, it's where I connect with Jesus. It's the heart of the camp.
Fair. Okay, beautiful. Other map experiences? Anybody else wish to share?
I shared that I kayaked today. Effects of my career in kayaking because my body was saying parts of me didn't want to do that. I really enjoyed it.
So despite the protests of her body, Jan kayaked. Beautiful.
I saw her from the back. I said, "Hey, is that Jan?"
Other Others? You all were talking very eagerly with each other. Yes, Christy.
When I was a little girl and I came here, I did not like the lake. I was afraid of it. Everybody else went swimming except for me and one other person because we were too afraid. I don't know, we thought of monster critters were in there. And so after leaving this meeting house, I went down to the lake. And my goal was to find God there, so find some beauty and leave my fear somewhere else. And I was able to. I watched the ladies sitting in the chairs with their feet in the water, talking, just having girl time, and the children were splashing. And so, I think it was transformative. It was pivotal because I kind of faced the fear. I didn't want to go down there. And honestly, it made me think of my childhood when I was here. Me and Linda Carter, we did not want to go down that lake. So if I ever see her, I'm going to tell
I did it. I went down there.
So I found the beauty. I watched the water. I saw the sun shining on the water. The beauty was there. I just had to leave the fear behind me.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
So, I climbed the rock wall with the children. And I fell off the rock wall. She actually climbed the rock wall. Her wife made it all the way up. On both of them. There's one that's got like a ledge that goes like this. And I couldn't get over it. I got all shaky and I fell. Good David here. And a friend. They had two. Keep me from slamming down, but it was a great experience. And I just heard today that there's a zip line here at this camp. So let's do it. Maybe that's
Pine trees you can fall through also.
Yeah, I hear you can fall through the pine trees too.
But not anymore. They are not built like that.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. So, I'm gonna share a little bit more. There will be another point that we'll get into the group, so don't go too far away. But if it's easier to not be craning over your shoulder. So, what I hope to just point out here is that last night we spoke a lot about our experiences of personal transformation. In fact, we heard more of that in what Michael shared this morning about how the changing of our mind prepares us for that further transformation. This evening, I wanted us to focus more on this question of community and how we change together as a community. And I'm thinking of this as stewarding renewal. And so the verse that I'd like us to consider this evening for that is actually the same verse that we used for our section meeting. The FWC section of the Americas gathers every year in person or online. And our theme this year came from Isaiah 43, verse 19. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall ye not know it? I will even make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. And so this, for us at section meeting, but also as I've been considering it at this time, speaks to a point where the Israelites were coming out of exile, and they had gone through this experience of collective hardship. And this new promise of making ways and pathways in the wilderness and rivers in the desert was really a promise of new hope. And I think sometimes these individual experiences of transformation that we can share can in fact inspire new hope and new promise for us as a community more broadly, not just as individuals. And by sharing some of these experiences of how I changed, how I grew, we can really see new possibilities for ourselves collectively. So with that, I'd like to share a personal story. I get a little bit more into this circuitous route that I shared with you before on the map. Many of you have met my wife, Federica. We originally met in the West Bank, very near the project that Kelly described earlier in Ramallah. I went on a Christian Peacemaker Team's delegation to learn about that part of the world, and in fact had met graduates of the Ramallah Friends School at Guilford College while I was a QLSP student there, and was really impacted by their stories and their experience. It was right after the Second Intifada, so the second kind of Palestinian uprising, and many of them had been through tremendously violent and oppressive experiences coming to this little Quaker school in Greensboro, North Carolina, which was also a totally new place for me. And so I remained curious all through my motorcycle trip and other experiences about seeing this part of the world firsthand. And so eventually, a couple of years after college, I did go to visit Israel and Palestine, where I see actually a few people have put markers and transformational experiences of their own. So it was there that I met Federica. It took us some time to figure out where we would land, but in fact we went back around the globe to land back in my hometown in Olympia, Washington for a few years before getting married in Italy and in the US. And at that wedding in Italy, her parents began to talk about how, we're getting kind of old, maybe we could pass on the family farm to the next generation. Have you all thought about coming out to maybe help us out? And so began a really transformational experience for me, moving to Italy and really beginning to call it my home. And so actually, when I asked you all to consider points of origin, in some ways I'm definitely from the Pacific Northwest, from Oregon or Washington. But really, 10 years ago, I decided to set down a point of home for myself in Italy. And it was a really challenging experience, I will be honest. In many ways, I found that experience of living outside of my home culture, my home language, all of those sort of important points of reference for me really difficult. And yet, I really made a commitment to consider that my place. And we moved all of our lives, slowly but surely, over to Italy. And we eventually launched a project in 2020, January of 2020. That's what we in the literary world call foreshadowing. That was focused on building community experiences as bringing people together to try to kind of build collective change and growth. January of 2020 was not a very opportune time to start a project of that kind, because within the space of a few months, we were all on lockdown. Italy, first amongst many, was hit very hard by the global pandemic, and we found ourselves fully cut off. There was an intern that had just arrived a week before from Hungary, and we said, if you want to go home, buddy, this is looking like it's going to be now or never. And she said, I have the chance to spend time on a beautiful farm in rural Italy, or I could be in Budapest downtown where they're doing shifts to go out and get groceries. I think I'll stay here. So our small group of people there up on the farm, my in-laws, her, and a few others, made our way through that period of lockdown, that kind of first significant trial for us as a group. And unfortunately, that experience of walking with her and others was very beautiful in many ways, but I also saw how transformational experiences on their own don't necessarily bring us together as a community. If we go through hardship or difficulty together at times, it can bring us together. At times, our points remain as distant, separate experiences that don't ever come together. And I think an important part of that is our commitment to place. So one thing that I really realized at that time was I was really challenged and had to ask myself, like, is this where I want to be? And we talked a lot about it. Like, is this where we want to stay for our family? Many others, Bori, she had a perfectly good excuse. She was just an intern. She did way more than she needed to, and when her term was up, she did return to Budapest. But many others came and went. So over the years, we actually had many people come say, "This is the place. You know, we want to put down a sticker and make this a home with you." But unfortunately, in many instances, it became just a passing, transformational, but not permanent experience. And I struggled a lot to accept that I was the one who was staying while many others were coming and going. And I asked myself, you know, is it something about me? Is it something about us? Is it something about this place? You know, what's wrong? And I think it speaks to some of what I was bringing up last night. As a lifelong friend, I think we're very hard on ourselves sometimes. We think like maybe we should be more perfect. And maybe then I just wasn't loving enough towards each person that came, or appreciative enough of exactly where they were coming from. So we stuck it out. We stuck it out for another few years until in the spring of 2023, we had a massive landslide and flooding event in our same farm. Similar to what happened in western North Carolina. If you all know, our rolling hills were very similar to the territory up there. But we got 3/4 of our annual rainfall in 48 hours after a significant period of drought, and big parts of the mountain just washed away, including our animal stalls. There was not a fence line intact, and even our road, which was the only road to the farm, just slipped down the mountain. And again, we asked ourselves, like, is this a sign? Is this the end? You know, what is the message here? And I, at that point, said, I can't do this anymore. At that point, I really began to pull off my round sticker and begin to think like this is going to be a transitional experience. You know, I need to figure out whatever is next. And I began to ask myself deeper questions about what it was that I really needed and get back better in touch with my personal God, my personal sense of direction, my purpose. And I actually am really thankful for those trials. Unfortunately, it was incredibly painful. It was difficult for my family. By that time, we had a whole other group of people living and working up there at the farm, many of whom, again, were very enthusiastic to help us sort of dig out. But then as time went on, you know, for whatever reason, went their own ways. And so all of that brings us up to just about a year ago, when we ultimately made the decision to return to the U.S. And I found myself just basically having to bear witness to the end of a dream. And something that I don't believe I failed in necessarily. I didn't achieve all of what I hoped. It did not become the permanent experience that I imagined it would be, but it was incredibly important and transformational for me. And I do believe we did a count. There were dozens of people that passed through and spent months or more with us on that journey. And I do feel that we were transformed through that experience collectively together. And so I stand before you today, having received the news right about this time last year, that after already deciding that we had to uproot our lives and leave, and we had decided to return to Washington, Pacific Northwest, we basically we're going to have to start over from scratch, and had no idea what was going to come next. So I have a counselor that has shared with me this image that I keep coming back to. It's from Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. You may have seen this. He's running down, and he's being chased down the tunnel And he comes up to this chasm where it's just infinitely deep and too far across, even for him to whip across this chasm. And, because it's the last crusade and it's all about faith, he's standing there looking at this, and he doesn't know what to do until he just sits, closes his eyes, sets out his foot, and steps off into the chasm. And the camera swings around, and you see that, in fact, there's a bridge there that crosses across the canyon. But the bridge has been painted to look like the canyon wall across it. So he throws a handful of sand, and you can see the bridge. But this just felt like one of many instances in my life where God has just said, you need to step off into the abyss, and there will be something there for you. You may not know what it is, but it will catch you. And in some ways, I think of that as bearing witness. It's trusting, but it's bearing witness to God's catching us every time. And so as we had made this decision to let everything go and return to the U.S., I was selected to serve in this role. And so within days of returning to the United States, I was off on that another cross-the-world trip that I shared with you before. So that is a personal story of my pathway and transformative experience that brought me here. But I think as friends, we have asked ourselves many times in these days, what do we need to do as friends to transform and revive our faith? I think we're asking ourselves hard questions. We're seeing fewer people each Sunday morning. We're wondering where the young people are. We're asking ourselves how we're going to maintain buildings and programs and committees with fewer resources. And I would like us to consider that some of the things that I found important in my life, which are really being key about where our point of departure is, our point of place, that place that we're committed to, be it our home meeting, our hometown, that community around our home meeting is really important. I think asking good questions is really important, and being able, even when we're unsure of knowing where we need to go, we're ready to ask ourselves those important questions. And then finally, bearing witness to the way God might move in those spaces is incredibly important. So I'm going to give you all another little challenge. I'm going to share an experience and an anonymized case study from this first year of my work on the job. And I'd like you to consider some of these points based on what's probably going to sound familiar to you in some ways. There'll be differences from your own home communities, but the next task for you in your home groups, little groups of 4 or 5 people, is to consider this situation that I described to you and imagine what they might do considering those points. So I'll share a little bit about this particular experience, and remember, they will remain anonymous. I will try to keep all specific details out. So this community is a community of friends in our section, and they had a common building together. And this was a building that was managed by friends from different different theologies, and they had a particular mission to support migrants and those moving through, using their space as a kind of place of welcome. And for many years, they were very successful. They had support from around the world. They received a steady stream of people who were interested and committed to their services. And they were even able to overcome some of their theological differences, I think in many ways because they were very clear about what their mission was. But as time went on, there began to be some challenges. Somebody was hired and to lead the program, and unfortunately that ended with scandal. And particularly this person's personal lifestyle choices ended up reflecting badly on the project, and some members of the one of the traditions that was not from the tradition where this director was hired from blamed the other tradition for having hired them and said, we can't work with you, and it was you that brought in this kind of a person. Eventually, the governing board of this project, that was a joint project of each of the various different friends groups, increasingly had more and more members of one group and less members of the other, until one day there was a sort of hostile takeover, and they just changed the locks at the building and changed the board and found themselves, and so one group found themselves uninvited from participating in the project. This was a place that also hosted worship and other activities, but all of that from one whole side of this joint agreement simply were not invited to participate anymore. I was called to come mediate between these groups and hear each one of them. So I sat down and I listened to what each of these groups had to say. And of course, they all sounded so reasonable in their descriptions of what had happened. One group pointed to the other to say, they hired this person that was clearly unfit, and their point of origin of the problem was that hiring decision. The other group said, well, their point of origin was the hostile takeover of the board. Everything was going fine. Yes, we have that scandalous problem, but that was unrelated to when they eventually kicked us out. To be honest, I still don't know what the best answer is. And so, my challenge to you in the next 5 minutes is to turn into your group of 4 or 5. And I'd like to ask you to consider these points of place. So where do you see these differing opinions on where the origins of the challenge might be? I've obviously very much narrowed down this story for you. You can ask some additional questions if you want before we break into the group. I'd like you to consider what questions might be asked. First, you can ask clarifying questions of me, but what might be the questions that you might ask? Or what might be the questions you would ask the folks who you've heard described here ask themselves? And then what might be the way that you could imagine bearing witness to this particular situation of brothers and sisters who are our friends and other fellow Quakers in our global community? So first, I'll open it up for any clarifying questions. If anything I said wasn't clear. Unfortunately, it's probably not such an unusual thing, even if the details are a little peculiar.
Was there anything in these groups that different in terms of age or ethnicity or family connection or?
No ethnicity difference. To hear them tell it, the main difference is theology. Yeah. I would argue that maybe there was some class difference in it. I think there might have been some jealousy about ways in which, particularly the international support, maybe was perceived differently by the different groups. Yeah, Rachel?
They all tell me the money story.
Well, that's a good point, because they see the money story very differently. The reason I use this example, in the case there's a building, I can throw out another couple of examples. A meeting receives a massive donation to set up a dedicated fund that therefore requires a new board, and a whole lot of financial investment was required just to keep this program going. So actually right now, the money is a big problem because the sustaining and maintaining and fundraising and generating enthusiasm for this project was how the money came in. I think some people perceived that some people were, unfairly benefiting financially from one part or the other of this project when it was a group, shared between the two organizations. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Are they both contributing pretty equally?
They were, well, they were both participating in the operation of the project. The director, whoever was hired as the director, was the main person responsible for raising the money. And so that could be a part of the frustration with a director who they saw as unfit, perhaps raising or connecting in ways that they didn't believe in. Yeah?
How did it come to be that both sides were willing to talk to you, and one side had kind of gotten what it wanted?
Well, it's very interesting, because that actually relates to the last question that Rachel had. The people who staged the takeover wanted to talk with me, or you could, however you wanted to. The people who ended up holding the board and holding the place at the end came to me saying, nobody wants to donate to our project anymore. We need your help. The other people said, well, we've been kicked out and we can't do what we want to do anymore.
So one group owned the building?
No, it's actually a third entity. And in fact, this board and the makeup of this board is technically a part of that kind of control of the ownership. Remember, we're not solving, all aspects of this project. But I invite you to turn to the people in your group and think about a little bit about these questions of points of place, points of departure. What kind of questions might we ask? And how can we bear witness? I can write these down. Do people want me to write those questions down?
Yes.
No? Okay.
One question that every patron organization has to face is, are we here to spend money?
They were associated with one of the factions. They were members of one of those three factions.
Okay, the bigger you get, the more you're here just to spend money. Point of origin, lack of communication, leadership that wasn't interested in
So that is hilarious.
That's a common
So somewhere in the middle, like.
The point of place could be like, where do you think some of these folks who are involved in this group are starting from? Where do we start? And where do you think some of them are starting? Yeah, everybody is a serious Quaker. So the ownership is a board, that is neither one of the groups but was meant to be shared jointly between them.
And there's also a group that's doing good and doing a lot of good. Get to the place where many feel we're the only people that can do that. And a question to confront them with is, are you the only people that can do this? And I think it's the question they would need to figure out why they're there. It's not a nice question.
All right, friends.
Not a nice question to ask.
I don't expect us to solve this problem.
And there've got to be some people in both groups that want to work together. And so somebody needs to get in there and identify sounding pastoral again. Maybe I'll go back into the pastoral. No.
All right, friends. Let's come back.
You don't have to be.
And you can move your chairs fully back. All right. Did anybody want to share something that came up in their small group? What were some of your thoughts on this situation?
There were problems. The problem is not this. This was just a flashpoint. This issue. The problems go back farther and have been not dealt with.
There's deeper problems.
Yeah.
Yes.
The problems are deeper.
Lack of communication. Lack of communication.
Lack of communication. Lack of communication.
You should have been brought in way before that.
Me?
Yeah. Or some third party.
Yeah.
Or fourth
party. Well, I appreciate your confidence in me, but I offer this example as an illustration of both my story and now one story of a struggling congregation amongst hundreds and thousands of friends all over our section and around the world. I want us to be very clear that I think our point of departure right now is not an easy one. I've heard that in what Michael and Olivia and others shared today and in the last few days. I don't want to sugarcoat how challenging I think the road is ahead of us. And coming back to the quote from Isaiah, I think we really are in the desert. I think we really are in the wilderness in many ways. But I do believe that we have opportunities through coming together. I'm suggesting these particular reflections from my own story about thinking about where we're coming from, where the original... Is the point of departure what we really think it is, or does it perhaps start sooner? Are we asking good questions? Are we communicating with each other in proper ways? Are we really, truly finding that of God in our brothers and sisters? And ultimately, are we bearing witness to those ways in which God is at work every day among us? So, with that, our time is drawing to an end. But I want to offer, not as a solution or as a complete tying up of this situation or even my own life and pathway. You can talk to my wife about how that's going. But as FWCC, our work is to try to facilitate these kinds of experiences where we come together, where we come from all kinds of different points of origin, share transformational experiences together, and bear witness to them as a group, as friends from all different stripes. And I know that we've been talking about some of the challenges that this year the meeting has been facing in our time together. And I have faith that all of us together, working together, can grow and change and transform and renew our faith together. And I wanted to offer one concrete thing that is an initiative that we work on that could be another opportunity for you all to join the global family of friends around the world and raise up what you're doing and what you're proud of and where you've come. And that is World Quaker Day. We hold it every October, the first Sunday of October. And I have posters back there on our table. You are very welcome to pick one up. I didn't say obligated, but welcome. Semi-obligated. And this is an opportunity for you to do something on a single day that will be coordinated with friends all over the world. This is like watching, the ball drop in New York across, all of Quakerdom. And it starts in Australia and works itself all the way around the world. And this year we're really focusing on the theme of loving your neighbor, because we think that now more than ever before, that is important. The Bible says it in so many different ways. We get mixed up, but really what we're inviting you to do on the 5th of October is share with your neighbors. Invite somebody new to meeting who maybe hasn't been there before. Welcome your neighbors to do something perhaps outside of your four walls. Connect with other faith communities. Or perhaps visit another Quaker church or meeting in your area that you've never been to before. You can also use FWCC as a resource to build international connections. We can help facilitate like a Zoom connection with another meeting or church around the world. Some of the ones that Kelly referenced before within FUM, either directly through FUM or with us at FWCC. We'd be very happy to facilitate that connection. And really, at the base of it, we wish to raise up a message of love from Quakers around the world on a single day. These are really trying times we're in today, friends, and I think the world needs our love. God is calling us to be that witness, shine that light in dark times, and I invite us to do that together, all around the world, as friends everywhere. And so I really appreciate you all inviting me to be here with you all in these days. It was beautiful for me to be here with my family and share camp time with you and experience Quaker Haven for the first time. And I hope that you'll keep in touch. I really appreciate the representatives who've been serving us. Sarah Miller is also a new rep for Western Union Meeting, who's not here with us. But I really hope we stay connected and that you come and continue to bring the theme of transformation and renewal together with us into the future. So let's settle down into a little bit of closing worship and eat some ice cream.
So we'll head over for some ice cream, at the dining hall. For tomorrow, getting out of your rooms and all, I think we will have some time. I think our session won't go all the way up to lunch tomorrow.
is there something planned besides the business session?
I think, well, like I said, I don't think so. I think there'll be time to pack up in there right before lunch, and then you can head out from there. If for some reason you had signed up for lunch and you're not planning to be here, let me know.